Welcome, everyone. I'm Myrna Haskell, Executive Editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication for women with a focus on the arts, philanthropy, health and wellness, culture, and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. This morning, my guest is Meryl Meisler. She is an award-winning photographer whose book, Streetwalker, is excerpted in Sanctuary. We excerpted last month, but listeners who had not seen it last month can still get to it from our book excerpts graphic right from our homepage, and you can see some of the fabulous photos that are collected in that book. Welcome, Meryl. It's great to have you this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. Pleased to be here.
So I just wanted to shout out that your work has been seen in incredibly notable arenas. So let me just mention a few of them: the Whitney, Brooklyn Museum, Mass MoCA, the subway system in New York, and also Grand Central. And I noticed you also have had your work in notable venues over in Europe as well. And so I'm not the only fan out there, obviously. So I wanted to start out with talking about Streetwalker, but before we get into it, I love the cover. So we're going to have this up there for listeners to see. But I mean, the Farrah Fawcett hairdo of the stylist, the bubble gum, the art on the wall, the gal getting her hair teased in the chair. It literally just transports you back to circa 1970s. I mean, that's what photography is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to literally transport us to an environment or a point in time, or, a feeling, a cultural feeling or something like that. So, brava to you with that. But I was hoping we could start out with the inspiration behind this collection of photographs in Streetwalker, if you could talk a little bit about that for us.
Certainly. I will say this is my fourth book, and I was approached by iShot, which is a publisher based in Italy, Bologna, and I was introduced by a online friend I have, Shin Noguchi, who published a book by him that would change it. He introduced them to my work, and we were corresponding for a while, even during the pandemic, and then they wanted to do a book. And the idea, I said, well, I'd like to do, since this is mainly street photography, I sent them lots of street photos from the 70s all the way up until current time. And I and to my surprise, they went through my website and other things and chose other photographs as well, which I love the idea, because to me, I'm not strict. Like, there are people who are strict one religion, they don't allow to do one thing. I'm like expansive. The idea of street photography extends beyond the streets themselves. It could be in the clubs, it could be in an interior setting. They brought it deeper. And yes, it's predominantly from the 70s and early 80s, but there's also some current things. But I'd like to talk about the cover you chose.
Yes, let's talk about that cover.
That's my mom. That's my mom, Sunny Meisler, getting her hair teased. And we're talking, I don't want to mistake the date, I think it's 1976. And I grew up in Long Island in a town called Massapequa.
Oh, I know of Massapequa, yes.
Yeah. And my mom, like many people of her generation, religiously went to beauty parlor every week. And I asked if I could photograph her at the beauty parlor. And that's a photograph of a mother-daughter photograph. That's someone who loves you so deeply that they were comfortable in that situation. And that's the hairstyle of the time.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I grew up, I went to high school in the 60s. People teased their hair and they had.
That's right. That's right. And we did it again in the mid and late 80s, though, right?
Yes, absolutely.
The hair upside down, spray, tease, flip.
And she's getting her hair teased at what I was going to say synagogue, at the beauty parlor she went to called Besame. And the people there, I went from them from time to time, were comfortable with me taking pictures, and I love that photograph in that it's obviously they know I'm photographing them, but they're doing their thing. The guy in the background, he's the owner, he's doing the hair, the woman's talking to my mom, you're telling a thing, and the other one looks at me and blows a bubble. And it just,
Uh, right?
yes.
It's so real. And the energy of it takes you back so much that you almost can hear the conversation. You
I think,
almost like that's how good it is.
thank you very much. As I said, it's one of my favorite finds because I'm someone, in case you don't know my story, I'm a retired New York City public school teacher. So I spent
Yes.
decades just working like a dog. And I'm looking at my work in a new way and printing things that have never been seen before and looking in a new way and contextualizing it in book format, most book and exhibitions. And that's a find, and it just brings me to the moment. I think photographs are like silent movies. You have to imagine the soundtrack and feel it and the organ player. And you can have subtitles, or you don't need to have subtitles. You get there, it's very dramatic.
I love that it's like a silent movie. You're right. And isn't that better that you have to use your own imagination to feel and imagine the scene or being in the scene instead of being just directly told that, through text or through video?
Yes, I tend to be
That's
just
what's so wonderful about fine art photography, though. Street photography, but we also now know fine art photography, right? So there was a push for that, and righteously so. Um, but yes, that's terrific. And also the good humor photograph.
oh, thank you.
Um, I loved that one. I think the expression on his face and the sign and just the way and what he was wearing and zipped up there's just so many of them that I love. I love the playground photo with the children behind chain link fence. And I mean, you can really just go all over the place with that one, right? Um, so many that you had sent me that, really spoke to me and that I knew you were a photographer that really like felt the heartbeat of your subjects, no
Oh,
matter what decade you were photographing them in. And I think that's why it literally transports the viewer back.
thank you. I know.
But let's talk a little bit about black and white photography, if you don't mind, because
Oh,
it's a favorite of mine, actually. I have a photograph of my children when they were toddlers in black and white that has remained one of my favorite photographs of them. Of course, as a mom, is constantly getting photographs of my kids. I was taking them, other people were taking them. I had so many around the house at the time, but this black and white one really spoke to me. So I also love the feel of black and white photography. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and then maybe also a little bit about what draws you to subject matter. Whether, I guess this is a two-part question then, whether or not it's, a visage or it's the energy in the room or it's a little tiny detail that you brought you into a scene and then you just started taking photographs, whatever you want to say about that. So subject matter and then also black and white photography.
excellent. I'll start off with black and white.
Sure.
I went when I went to graduate school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I decided to take a photography course. So I had seen the work of Diane Arbus at a show, my own father's black and white photographs, and it was also, we're talking about 1973, taking my first class, and so I learned traditional black and white photography, developing film, printing, and color had not entered the fine art world yet in some way. And I'm back to black and white. I'm back to film. So I did not, this book is all black and white, negative, analog photography. I have also photographed in color, especially when I was a teacher. I didn't have time to print. I didn't have time.
Yes, well, that's a busy profession.
But now, by choice, I'm back. I'm using the same. I brought a little show and tell.
Oh, okay, fabulous.
Camera that I used back then. You guys had the same exact one. It's the same kind.
And photographers get attached to the certain cameras that they really feel comfortable with as well.
Yeah, I feel like I can see it's like I see. in my home in Woodstock. Honestly, I have I put a dark room in. I've come back because I realized how beautiful the prints are. My daddy was a printer, not a photography printer, but a printing idea about print quality. And when I started to show my work in really big galleries, they were interested in my vintage prints, being it was printed back in the day when it was taken, and so it's within like 1 or 2 years of the actual image. And I realized, oh my God, they look great. They're beautiful. It looks different than a computer print, and it feels different. There's a richness.
Yeah.
And
Is it something similar to, like, when we listen to LPs and all the digitized music now, a lot of musicians talk about the quality of the record play, the sound of the record player, the diamond on the record, it's different. What do you see that's different now that you brought that up?
I agree with you. I don't have that kind of ear that can hear like that, but I liken it to polyester, silk, rhinestone, diamonds. There is a difference.
Yes.
Gold metal, gold. There's a difference. I feel it. I know it. The surface quality doesn't compare. The richness to me.
And you
And
love being in a dark room, it sounds like. You love doing
I
traditional
don't.
dark.
I'm like I said, by choice. I'm back there. Well, one thing was that my galleries like that, but I also see the difference. I don't say, "Oh, it's Tuesday. Gee, for fun, I'm going down in the dark room." No, I go down if I'm having a show and I am printing work for them or sales, and I'll again, I'm back to shooting film, so I'll just have a bunch piled up one time and developed a film and hang it in there. So I don't say, "Oh, gee, this is what I want to do for." I'd rather go to a Broadway show. No, this is not what I do just for fun. But when I'm doing it, I'm there, and I might be a certain snob appeal, like I can do it, and I like the way it looks, and maybe if I was print, photographs are very interpretive prints or images. So I remember how I saw it, or how I think I saw it, and how I want it to look. So you control it. If I was very wealthy and I could hire someone else, maybe, but I think it's kind of fun that I'm doing it now.
Absolutely. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah,
And you mentioned Woodstock, and of course, before we got on, we found out that we had that in common because I grew up in Woodstock. So hopefully one of these days I can make it out, maybe see your dark room and see some more of
okay.
your work. I would love to do that,
Without
Meryl.
saying specifically, can we say how close our connection is?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You live on the same street as my parents still do.
And amazing,
Where I grew up. It's
amazing.
I know. We did not know this,
All
folks who
world.
were
That's crazy.
listening. So,
Crazy.
but you know
Okay.
what's so funny though, Meryl? I always feel like the universe brings people together for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel that way. I really do feel that way. I feel like you meet the people you're supposed to meet, and then if there is that real connection, like there is going to be an energy that it takes you places, knowing certain people and being involved with them and learning from them and all of that. So it's just another time. There's been thousands in my life where I've gone, oh my God, well, of course.
And not only, I mean, but also, you could have said block, but you said the name of a certain person. I'm friendly. I mean, like, then you could have said
Oh, I
anything.
know. Well, we can
I
say
knew
that
it.
person because she's been in Sanctuary, Betty Ann Moskowitz. And
Oh,
so our readership and listeners know very well about Betty. And we had her last book, Three Legs in the Evening, excerpted in Sanctuary as well. So it's a family
crazy,
out that way,
crazy,
Meryl.
lovely woman. And so, but I had
Very
so
talented, just like you.
thank
Very
you.
talented writer, Betty. Kudos to her as well.
So I also did my work. I've also photographed a lot of nightlife since I'd be dancing and I would drop my camera. So when it was a repair, I shot with color as well. So
So you were taking the
what
photos
happened?
while you
Yeah,
were dancing?
sure. And
I
so
love that disco era. I've got to tell you, I love to dance. Love, love, love to
it'd be
dance.
fun. So I'm not only black and white, but I'm choosing to be back, and I'm choosing back to be filmed to be more focused,
Okay.
limiting. That's the choice. okay, well, what attracts me to photographs? What do I choose to photograph? I realize in retrospect, looking at my work now, that I've always chose to photograph people expressing joy
Ah.
and confidence and exhilaration. I choose to photograph places, something I've never seen before. Like, you know, you're walking down and you have, I don't know, five cats on pile on your head, something I've never seen before, or something that seems so typical, it's almost like a reenactment of a Norman Rockwell painting.
Oh,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and then I photograph, and of course, not everything's fantastic. I photograph people, my life, people and places and things in my life, or
But the
places.
joy attracts you. I can, okay, one of them that I just thought of, because you said that, is the kids on top of the cubbies.
I just and I thank you. I just like said no, put it out there. I never even showed it to anyone. It's good. They're just on, and I'll send it to you. So it's not in any books. I just you know, it's it's like they're just such like little kids, and they're climb up in the cubbies, and they're there, and their little skin knees,
You're
and
in the moment.
yes, and I have my knees are always skinned.
Ah,
Band-aids
yes,
and falling in the gutter. Yeah, yes, thank you. Just
I love that joy, though.
yes.
Yes, yes.
And
I get that from your work as well. And
I
also, though, a real serious introspection on human condition, human perspective, the energy in the room. I get all of that from your photographs as well. So, oh, that's so nice. I'm glad you said that. I wanted to ask you, I did notice this before I had you on, and congratulations on this because this was a fabulous piece. It was back in 2016, which again is another connection for us, though, Meryl, because Sanctuary launched in 2016. But you were recognized in Time Magazine's article, Unsung American Female Photographers
That's
of the
amazing.
past, and you're in very good company there. I took a close look at that article, and so it's just another way that you've been recognized over and over again over the years. But with that being said, I was hoping you could think back maybe till very early in your career, if there was a woman's photographer's work that particularly inspired your work, perhaps, or even a mentor, anybody that you want to shout out there.
I certainly will. 1972. I'm a senior. I was an art education major in Buffalo State College. I was home on Long Island. I went into the city and I took myself to Museum of Modern Art. And I don't know if I went specifically to see that show, but I saw the Arbus retrospective, Dion Arbus. Some people say Diane. I believe her name is pronounced Dion. And the work moved me. It inspired me to take photography class.
Wow.
And I did not. People say they're freaks, or I thought them as very human, very
Yes.
real photographs. I'm gonna say one photo. Like there's a photograph of a Jewish giant and his parents. That's what it's called. Well, to me, we have my mother's had a cousin. They called him Big Bill. Those little people. There's another set of my aunt and uncles, and the apartment looks like the Bronx apartments of my relatives I grew up. To me, they seem very warm and trusting. So that was a female. I also had the opportunity and chose to when I graduated from the University of Wisconsin. My major was not in photography. I switched drawing, illustration, but my minor subject was photography. I came to New York to try out, and I was accepted to take a class with Arbus's mentor, Lizette Modell. And her work, Odell's work, definitely influenced, inspired, and she also kind of gave me, okay, just keep doing what you're doing. That was a
And
role.
that's so important, isn't it? When you have somebody that you highly respect that gives you kudos about your work, that tells you you've got something here, encourages you. I stayed in touch with two educators, one from my high school and one from when I went for my undergrad degree, who became friends and just, we stayed in contact for years and years and years. Mary Leonard, actually, my English AP teacher in high school, was the inspiration behind our poetry corner section in Sanctuary. And she was the one that connected us with all the different poetry groups and the poets early on with that section, which is fabulous. So, it's just, it helps you to, I think, really have the confidence to dive into what you're doing when you have someone who you've respected so much say that, you've got something here. I see your unique creativity.
I see you, I understand you.
Yeah.
Someone I've never met in person, though, in terms of street photographer, women, is Helen Levitt. Her photographs of kids playing on the streets of New York, very much when the pictures you're talking about, whether in the cubby holes or looking through the fence. I was aware of Helen Levitt
Okay.
and admired and the simple beauty of them. And in terms of digging into my work, going back, I had my inspiration. Once my friend Arlene Gottfried, who was my contemporary, but was like starting to make books of her work. But also, as I'm digging and doing it, releasing them, then the story of the nanny, Vivian Meyer's work surfaced. And so Vivian Meyer was a nanny who photographed nonstop, and work was not discovered till after
I
she
know about her.
and
I know about her. I think we celebrated her in some way in Sanctuary. I'm forgetting which section, but yes, I know.
was
That's amazing, right?
her digging.
Yeah.
I mean, so her work at saying, well, nanny, teacher, photographed, just everything she saw, I'd like to photograph.
Yeah, she was taking in all of that,
Yeah,
obviously, right?
it's like, well, you know what? I'm approaching my own work like I'm discovering myself.
And I'm
And
sure that as an educator, so you worked for like 30 years, didn't
for
you?
1 years, and then 5 years afterwards, an adjunct
And as an educator, you really have to understand human behavior. And so that goes into the photography though, right? And your connection to your subjects, I would think.
it was my career as an educator that I got my work this big jump. It did because I taught in Bushwick, Brooklyn, taught about color work for 14 years in the 1980s, in the early 90s, or mid to my 90s, when it was very burnt out, and now it's an artsy hip neighborhood. But I end up having that I have one of the largest bodies of work of Bushwick in that time period because I was going to work. And I
Yeah.
and I took pictures of what I saw, and I also photographed. My biggest unseen body of work is 3 decades of insider's view of being a teacher. Side boy.
Wow.
But
Oh, I would love to see some of that
that's
too.
another
We have to
level.
stay connected, Meryl.
That's
Well, I
so.
did tell you that you take people watching to another level,
Oh, thank
obviously.
you.
And that's why your work, though, is so important and so admired, too. But I was hoping, with that being said, that you might talk a little bit about your actual process, because everybody has a process, right? Like some photographers might take dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of photographs kind of loosely and then go back and really dig into what they saw and go from there. Like whatever you want to say about your process.
Okay, my process is that uh, not as much, but in the early 70s, I took my camera everywhere. I'm not as much now because I'm spending time focusing, but I will have, if I'm, I like nice sunlight, it's a beautiful sunny day and I'm walking, I might, carry my camera with me. And if I see something important or something strikes me, I'll take a picture. If, in terms of night, if it's something strikes me I realize my process, and again, this is retrospect. For the most part, I didn't go to photograph. I photographed where I was going. So I didn't go to
Oh
photograph.
my God, I love that. That is a quote by you.
I
For
didn't go
sure. I love that. Yes.
to document.
That's why it's so real, though, right?
It's where
So
I
timely, so in the moment, and then brings people right back there. That's why.
this is where I'm. These are the places I was going to. This is my family. These are my self portraits. These are my friends. I will say I'm back to photographing nightlife now. Why not? Because you know what? It's fun, if no other reason. So I would say now, when I do go out and photograph nightlife, I'm not going out with the purpose to dance. I am going out with the purpose to photograph, and it's usually with someone that I know would a performer, so I have something in mind. So I'm going. So I'm taking back what I said. I said I'm not strict. You can do it either way.
Yeah.
But most of my successful iconic photographs were, in a nice way to say that, were impromptu. But then it depends on, but well, interior photographs of people in their homes, like that's a whole other series. And obviously I know them and I've made a date to go in to do it.
Are you surprised a lot by what you see afterwards in the dark room or once the prints are done, from what you thought you saw behind the lens?
Okay, that's very interesting because it depends if you talk about the past or current work, you know.
Both, or like anything you
Uh,
think of to say about that, because I'm sure that even if it's happenstance and you're just, walking around the neighborhood with your camera and you happen to see something that interests you and you take a photograph, or you're deliberately going to photograph something that you know you want to celebrate that particular subject matter or whatever it is, I'm sure there are still surprises when you come back with a series of images, right? Wow, I didn't expect that. That kind of thing is what I'm asking
all
about.
that, and that happens all the time. You
Do you
don't.
remember like a biggest aha moment at all? I know that's got to be hard with all the thousands of photographs you've taken, but if you could think of something where you really were just genuinely surprised about how something came out. Maybe it was the lighting, maybe it was the expression on the face that you saw in a different way behind the lens that maybe as you started developing, you're like, ooh, I don't know. I just thought
Let's
to
make it a
ask
real
that.
teaching moment. I had to print two pictures that are going to be in a show. I'll get them and talk about that. Like the theme is hair, but I don't remember. It has a great name.
Okay, just show us a few of them and
Yeah, yeah.
we'll
So
get
this
the
is going to
idea.
be. I just printed it for a show on the theme is hair, but it has a better name than that. And the curator chose it. I said, "Oh, I'm so glad because I've always wanted to print this picture."
Fabulous.
And what I love, first of all, I love that people react to it,
Okay.
but I love that her finger just makes it in here, and the clock just makes it in here.
Oh yeah, when you
So
start to look at it.
and bringing out the light and then the faces going to back. You don't know you're going to catch that, and then of course the Riviera is gone.
So
So
you see that after the fact,
it's
which is,
but
and so then in the developing process, Meryl, when you start to see some of those things more up close, do you do like several, prints where you manipulate it all in some way, the lighting, or to put a little bit more focus on something that you didn't initially maybe think you wanted to focus on at all?
yes, since we're talking about dark rooms, so nothing has changed except for like dodging, making something come out,
Right.
making something, making the slide look better. Um, I don't even, I rarely even crop. I try to get as much as possible.
Okay.
Another,
Well, I know we see that that the photograph in Walker, just for a moment, the kiss, which is another one that I love, by the way, because there's so much going on in that room.
which kiss? Tell me
The
about which
kids,
kiss.
oh shoot, they were numbered, and I don't. But there's the two children on the couch with the pillow, and the couple is kissing, and there's
Oh,
all these
oh,
handmade Afghans that are in the room, and
and they were that couple. I knew her. She went to my high school.
oh, okay.
It was very nice.
There's so much going on in that
I didn't
photograph.
realize I didn't even have a vintage print on, but I must have said to them. They said it's on their refrigerator, and they're still married.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah. So this is going to be in this show coming up on the theme of hair, right? It's a studio.
Oh, I love it. I
It's
love
also
it.
going to. I'm also going next week to Paris. I have a show on
Oh, love
the
Paris.
Museum of Music, and this is really fun. You might know I'm
That's
very.
wonderful, Meryl. Okay.
I would say, and this is so. For example, the hair, I using a dodging tool, and before I ever print them, I I rarely did something pull contact sheets. I just kind of look at the negatives through like a little loop,
Okay. Yeah.
and then I might do a high res scan for like a book. So you see things, but I could say I'm in the printing. It's different preparing things digitally for a book. It's like very different what you bring out, what you don't. And,
Right, right.
and it's like I want to show the hair more, so I dodge the hair. But
Okay.
I'm also saying, and it's my friend Judy Jupiter, who we're still friends, who did a lot of clubs. I found myself all printing in wine and I said, look at all the great faces, the expressions. Like it's like very cool, Meryl. You call all that. I like that.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. And
I,
that goes to the joy and the expression and what draws you to take photographs, right?
and I don't know, and I happen to have one right in because I mean, I just framed this work to go in the show, and this is a photograph in Streetwalker that you haven't seen, contemporary nightlife.
Oh,
That's what I love to say.
fabulous.
Thank you. There's Amanda Lepore, the famous Suzanne Barsh parties at Christmas Eve, and
And the lips.
the lips, the makeup, but it's also her birthday, and I think it's a very becoming photograph.
Yes.
It's
Wonderful.
and
Wonderful. Well,
you
you
know,
mentioned going to Paris. I wanted to close off our conversation by giving you the opportunity to talk about, you did talk a little bit about the fact that you're using color again and that, but is there any particular project you want to point listeners to, or, something that's happening, up through maybe the summer?
I'm very fortunate. Okay. I have a group. I'm in a group show currently right now at Woodstock Art Association Museum, and it's a contemporary self portrait. It's called Photographic Currents. Opening next week,
Okay, good.
13th through May. I want to get the
I'll
dates.
have to check that one out.
Is
We have a lot of listeners and readers from the Hudson Valley area, so
oh yes,
it's good that you mentioned.
yes, but in Paris, in the Musée de Musique, there's a show called Disco. I'm coming out, and I have a lot of work at it, and that's what I'm going
Oh, I
for.
love it. I was there about a
Coming,
year and a half ago. Yeah, and we have readers. Shout out to France. We have
you
readers
know,
from France and actually from
and
the Paris area too. Yeah. I mean, we will follow your work. We'll list some of these exhibitions that are coming up so that listeners can go and see her stuff in person, which would be fabulous because I just want to reiterate that her work really draws you in. And as we mentioned earlier in our conversation, that it's a silent moment, that you have, but a movie goes off in your own mind based on your own personal experiences when we see her photographs. So that's wonderful. So I just want to thank you so much for talking to me today. This has been a wonderful conversation about photography.
thank you. My pleasure.
I'll close as I always do by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.